Appreciate you taking time to do this. I know you're super busy. I see all the stuff you're coming out with right now, and it's kind of crazy what your schedule's like.
Yeah, I mean it's about to be a lot crazier once everything gets into the swing of things, but it's just mainly like a lot of meetings and stuff right now to make sure that everything's set up for summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Dravor, yeah, thanks for the follow. This will be a VOD later on. I will repost to YouTube and I'll save it on my Twitch channel as well. Okay. So yeah, first off, Dom, thank you for coming on. I know I just saw you announce that you're doing an LPL co-stream soon, and so one of the chatters was already talking about being excited for that. I know you're a huge LPL fan. What's that like now, actually officially being able to broadcast some of that content?
Oh, it's great. I mean, LPL in general has always been like super communicative with me.
Mhm.
They've always like tried to reach out with opportunities even before I was able to co-stream, and pretty much like um they've been like really helpful in trying to like find ways where we could collaborate and grow like together. So I think that's really unique because I mean, I've had like communication with Riot for uh LCS co-streaming, but it hasn't always been the like most smooth thing, and there hasn't always been the most communication. So it's nice to like have a league that feels like they actually like value me highly. I think
Yeah.
that's like a difference, and it's actually really nice.
I mean, I think it's crazy that LPL might actually surpass LCS in viewership at some point in terms of the US watching. Like, I mean, if you're into just
I mean,
high
I don't know
quality.
if that's gonna happen anytime soon, but
Are you still
yeah,
going to be doing LCS stuff as well?
yeah, I'll be doing LCS, LEC, and LPL.
Oh my God. How do you sleep?
Um, I mean, I don't really sleep like, but for people that like know how I used to stream, I for like a while when I started streaming, part of the way that I differentiated myself from other streamers was I just did the graveyard shift for like 3 4 years to establish myself, and then once I had a big following, then I kind of made things more normal hours. But yeah, I mean, for years I was waking up at midnight to stream. So honestly, like waking up at 4 a.m. to co-stream LPL is actually nothing to me. Like I feel like that's like a kind of like early normal schedule. You know, like I know people
Yeah.
growing up that wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and stuff, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like that's a time where you're just an early bird at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about first is, your path. Obviously, you're a former pro player, played LCS and all that. What was the transition like going from playing to coaching to streaming and becoming a full-time content creator?
Um, I think that it was definitely harder initially than I thought it would be. Just like getting viewership on Twitch and consistent viewership on Twitch. I mean, it really is a competition where you're just competing with like other streamers for viewers because I mean the amount of viewers hasn't went up that much in the League of Legends section overall since 2016. So it's more about just like out competing the people that are also trying to get that amount of viewers. So I think that that's like something that it took a while to really like understand. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a transition that was definitely like worthwhile, at least for the first like 2 years before like franchising came in. There was no real comparison between being an LCS player and being a streamer, so definitely was happy with the yeah with the
Yeah.
like at least the lucrative nature of streaming.
And do you think that your background has kind of helped you in that sense, separate yourself from a lot of other league streamers who are just, challenger players or high-level league players?
Definitely initially. Like I think as time went on, I cared less about playing super high quality League of Legends. It's like a good novelty factor at the beginning. And like like towards like season 8, like I would still be in Challenger, but I wouldn't like just grind a Challenger account on stream all day the same way I did in season 6, season 7.
Mhm.
So I think that that was like originally something that I used to separate myself as just like I had been playing the games on stage, right? So like it's not like a thing where I'm just high rated in solo queue, but it's like, oh, well, he's just a solo queue player. Like having the edge of being like known at that time as being a good LCS player and then being able to like be high rank in solo queue just gave me an initial audience, regardless of like what my personality was. Like
Yeah.
there was just people already there to watch just for my gameplay and for my skill rather than like for who I was as a person, which later on, I think most of my viewers like enjoy my personality. They like my analysis. Like they're coming to hear what I have to talk about on my stream.
Yeah.
But originally, like I think that that was like a very small portion of what actually made my stream like start being successful.
Sure. Yeah, and actually, I was telling some of the chat, but also you're probably the first league streamer I ever started watching a few years ago, And it wasn't, I mean, you obviously are a high level player, but it wasn't because you were, oh, you're killing people in jungle. And it was just like, I was watching you play. It was more so that I really appreciate your analysis and your breakdown of why things are going the way they are. And you're like, talking about certain champions and, oh, this is a mistake or whatever. I feel like the educational side is really what drew me into your stream too. So I think the coaching aspect really comes through, maybe subconsciously.
Yeah, I think that coaching was something. I mean, coaching is something I did pretty briefly, but I always felt like as a player, I was somebody who is in like a leadership role. Like, so for example, in season 5, I was like the captain of my team.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like the decisions in game, and really back then, because it wasn't a system where everyone was comfortable talking and communicating everything that needed to be communicated, it was kind of like whoever like is going to be talking about the overall like game plan. Like, not everyone knew what to do, right? So like being able to like have to always explain what we're doing and why we're doing it to my teammates in reviews or whatever, like it was kind of like functioning as a coach within a team. Whereas now I feel like there is like more coaching structure, and like all the players are more knowledgeable because the game has just been out for longer. But at that point, like when I was a player, I was like one of the more veteran players, right? Like I started playing in season 1, so by the time we got to season 4, season 5, I had years of competitive experience over some of my teammates. So I was kind of just naturally pushed into the role of like, well, if you're like the one that's been here the longest and you're like comfortable on stage, like you have to be the one that's talking about what we're doing and why. So I'm pretty used to like communicating what I need to communicate, but then also like trying to analyze like the general game state while playing a game. So I just try to do that like when I'm on stream a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's really helpful. And then what do you think is your greatest strength as a streamer? What sets you apart? Obviously, you said your personality. Are there other things that quality wise that you think kind of allow you to build an audience?
Well, I think that like the co-streaming angle is something that's always been really good for me because like then I can just fully focus on just talking about the game, right? Like when you're playing the game, you still have to like talk about what you're doing specifically, and you're gonna have like a more like you're not gonna have as wide of a viewpoint because of the nature of the fact that you like have to like be playing the game at the same time. So I think that like the fact that I have pro experience, I mean, a lot like I've been retired for 5 years, but I actually played pro for 6. So I mean, I played for a long time. Like there was a while where I just thought that I was just going to be a pro player for like my entire life. Like that was actually what was going on in my head, like around season 4, season 5. So, I think the fact that I have pro experience, I have experience in the games, but then also like, I think I can communicate it in a way that makes sense. Like I think my biggest strength would be taking like high level concepts and being able to explain them in ways that make sense to everyone. I would say that's probably my biggest strength right now in terms of like streaming.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a silver player, and I feel like after I hear you talk, I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Why did they take that Baron? but, but yeah, no, I love that. So, what's your daily schedule like right now? I know there's going to be a lot more going on. You said you got your night shift stuff going. What's your daily routine look like?
So I've been taking like a 2-week break or like a 3-week break since the end of MSI. I just told myself, hey, I just want to take a break. Because I know that the next split is going to be super intense. Essentially, like the way it works is like, I pretty much follow now. My stream, since I focus so much on pro play, follows like pro play pretty closely. Meaning that like when pro players have breaks, generally like I'll try to take a break as well. And then I'll just grind throughout the season. So I mean, it's going to be 4 days a week. I'm going to be doing the LPL co-stream. So I'll be doing the 4 days a week LPL co-streams, which are going to start 4 a.m. on those days. Then I'll do LCS LEC. Yeah, when that normally starts up. So LCS is normally around 3 p.m. my time, and LEC normally starts around like 9 or 10 my time. So I'll be doing that on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And then I do 2 talk shows. One would be Face Check, the other's the Crackdown. One of them's on Monday at 11 a.m., and the other one is normally on Wednesdays, and we're flexible around pro play. So normally my day is like I wake up right before I'll stream. I'll wake up right before I stream, and then I'll just like try to get everything done in the morning, try to get all my meetings done in the morning. And then normally like on days that don't have LCS, I'll be normally done by like maybe like 1 or 2. And then, I mean, I've been trying to incorporate different things. Like I'm building a gym right now, but all I have is a treadmill. So I've been using I've been going on the treadmill, for like, I do like this 35-minute like sessions. They're like these, I don't know, like these like shows or like these like workouts
It's like,
that
a
are,
class.
Yeah, it's like a class pretty
Okay,
much.
nice.
And it's just like interval training because I mean I'm trying to lose like probably like 20 pounds to get back to like what my normal weight is.
Mhm.
Lose my COVID pounds, and yeah, I mean normally like what works for me is always interval training. It's always the thing that gets me like in the best like place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it's good
go
that
for
you're
it.
actually you're incorporating that kind of stuff and thinking about it. That's what I was going to ask about was, what's your physical and mental health prep like? I mean, I'm sure streaming this often obviously takes a toll on your body and your mind. What are
Mhm.
some things that you've kind of adopted over the years to keep yourself healthy?
Um, well, generally speaking, I mean, I'm like my mental health is pretty much always good. Like for the last like 2 years, I don't think I've had any period where I've been like low at all. I don't know. I think that I just have like a very high mental state,
Mhm.
or like because I actually enjoy what I'm doing, right? Like when I go to work, it's like I'm watching a pro league that I want to watch anyway with my chat. So even if my chat can be like annoying at times, like the fact that like if that's a bad stream, that's the worst part of my day, and then I can
Yeah.
do literally whatever I want to do with the rest of my day. Can eat whatever food I want. Like, I mean, I hang out with my girlfriend. We watch like shows that we both enjoy. Like, I can, go to my treadmill and do that. I've been playing TFT recently, which I've been enjoying a lot. So I pretty much just like get to do whatever I want all day. So
That
even though I
sounds
have like yeah, I mean, like
that
even
sounds
though I have
awesome.
like an intense, yeah, I have an intense schedule, but it's like a schedule of things I want to do. Like I've always liked watching pro play.
Hmm.
And the only reason I didn't watch pro play as much as I do now is because it wasn't my job before. But now, if that's my job, sure, I'm down to watch like a bunch of pro play. I mean,
Yeah.
I like watching people that are really good play League of Legends, and I even liked it when I was a pro player. I took inspiration from other leagues a lot of the times when I was at LCS. So, yeah, I mean, I don't like. I guess my physical health is the only thing that ever wavers. It normally is because I'm the type of person that like I kind of want things to be my way in order to like exercise. Like for example, like if I have a gym,
Hmm.
I know exactly what I've done a million times every single time I've like got in shape. Like I know what exercise I like to do. I know how many reps to do and like what my body's gonna look like when I hit those goals. But then when COVID started and I didn't have access to a gym, I'm like not disciplined enough to, do home workouts and make the
Hmm.
best of it. Like
Hmm.
it's either like I want to do it the way I want to do it, or I'm not going to do it at all. So I'd say like my physical health sometimes can like waver, but my mental health is normally like pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's not unique to you either because yeah, I mean I'm a fitness nut. I work out at least 6 days a week, and when COVID happened, it was like I can't do home workouts. I just feel zero motivation. I don't really want to do it. I half-assed the entire thing. Totally get that. So I guess when you're talking about the support system, it's awesome that you love what you do now. Was that always the case with streaming, or is it more so that you've started shifting more towards the pro league stuff that's been easier for you? Because I mean, I've watched streams. I think playing League of Legends all day, especially in front of an audience, is taxing on your mind.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you go to any streamer stream
Yeah,
that's a big league streamer, and they're gonna like have some degree of like a toxic chat. It just is what it is.
yeah.
For me though, like, I mean, I guess it was kind of like a different approach. Like when I used to stream, my mentality really in like my early days was, okay, I'm doing this thing, and like I'm seeing like how lucrative it is. I'm just going to grind it out for like a few years so that I am actually set for life. And then once I hit that point, I can do what I want. So I feel like I put in that grind so that I feel like, comfortable, like safe, like completely financially stable, right? And then now I kind of just do whatever I want to do, which is why I take breaks now. Like before I never took a break. For like 3 years straight, the biggest break I ever took was like 3 days or like
Jeez.
2 days, something like that. Like it was, and I would try to stream every single day. So like I would stream something like 3,500 hours a year,
Wow.
which if you break it down is like, I mean, I'm averaging over 250 hours a month then. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I would just grind it for a while, and that was like pretty taxing because I would just stream a lot of the time when I didn't want to stream. But now
Hmm.
when I stream, I only stream if I want to stream, right? Like if I wake up and I don't feel like streaming, I just won't stream. That's just how it is. It just so happens that I just never really want to miss LCS or LEC.
Yeah.
There's never a day where I'm like, oh, I don't want to actually do it today. I
Yeah.
always want to do it. So that never is an issue. But if I didn't want to do it, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. I think it's really, really like you touched on the mental health side of it. The grind doesn't feel as bad when you really love what you're doing, and that definitely helps. So what's your favorite career moment so far that you've had either pro or in streaming?
Um, in pro play, it's either playing in the finals at IM Hanover, because that was just like such a crazy experience. I mean, in 3 months, I went from, I mean, I was on a team. I was on a team that was considered a pro team, but like the way that it used to work in League of Legends is pretty much the top 3 teams in each region would go to like the big events, and all the other teams were like pro, but they would just play in the qualifiers and then lose. And like I'd only been to one event in my whole career with my previous team, which was Complexity. So when I got to IM Hanover, it was crazy that like at the time that tournament was going to determine who people thought was the best team in the entire world. Like Moscow 5 won that tournament. They're considered the best team in the world up until the next huge tournament, which was Worlds 2012, which at that point, like they ended up getting beat by TPA. And then TPA was considered the best team in the world after that. But like that match was to determine who the best team in the world was. And just like going from being a solo queue player, and I, you know, like even when I started playing pro, I was still going to school. I was still going to college. So I ended up dropping out in December. So I went from being like a college student in December playing solo queue to being in a match like 2.5 months later to determine like who the best 5 players in the world would be. That was just such like a crazy thing to like reflect on, and it all happened so quickly.
Yeah. How is your family with that decision?
They're pretty okay with it. I mean,
Okay.
I never was I mean, the way they kind of viewed it was you can always go back and finish school. And I wasn't, and I went to University of Miami, and the way it works, or at least the way it worked at the time, was that you didn't actually lose your credits if
Nice.
you, yeah, like if you took a break or a hiatus or whatever. So, I mean, there was really no downside. And by the time I dropped out, I was already like on one of the best teams, and like esports was already looked appealing, like it looked like it was going somewhere. So I just think that I mean, and also just like my parents both did like I guess a little bit of a foray into the arts. My mom was a professional ballerina and my dad was an actor on Broadway, so they both
wow.
had like went and did something outside of academics for a period of time and then went back, and they both ended up getting their degrees later in life. So yeah, I think that they're pretty willing to like let me do whatever I wanted. Also, I think that like one thing that that my mom always talks about is the fact that like she pretty much achieved like the highest level of academic excellence that you can. So I feel like a lot of parents sometimes like try to vicariously live through their kids, like they want their kids to do stuff that they haven't.
Yeah.
But my mom was like already like she did so well in school that like I could never even compete with that anyway. Like I could only match it even if I like maxed everything out. So I don't think she had that like, you know, that feeling like, oh, he needs to, you know, do what I could, or he needs to make the most of his opportunity. Because I mean, she went to Yale, she graduated from Yale Law School, summa cum laude, and all that stuff. So you know, it's like if anything, it was more exciting for her to see me try something else and see if I could be really good at something outside of academics.
Yeah, that's great. Supportive parents, especially in esports right now, is something we're seeing more and more of. But it's always kind of the, you know, I think now that you're seeing money in the system, I think more parents are willing to let their kids try this kind of stuff. But it's great that you're able to get into that early on.
Yeah, and like
sorry,
the money wasn't like crazy back then, but it wasn't nothing either. Like I think my first year playing, I made like 60K, which like out like for going straight from college to being like 21, making that amount of money was completely fine. Like it seemed worthwhile, and like the upside was there. So
yeah, a lot of people make less than that graduating college. So
yep,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
What do you think's been the greatest challenge for you so far?
Greatest challenge for me? I think the greatest challenge has been like pretty much just trying to like work with Riot. I think that's been super hard for me. Like I like just in general, like I feel like having an entity that has that much control over like what you do, and can act without any type of punishment. Like they don't have to answer to anyone, right? So
They
like
are the law.
if like that type of thing is always like super like I mean I just hate that type of system. You know, it's like it's like even though I think they've been more fair to me recently, like working with a company that can literally end your career at any moment without any explanation and there's nothing you can do. Like I even pursued potential, like I tried to see like is there anything legally I can do if you know I'm being treated unfairly, and like it's like kind of, but kind of not. Pretty much like Riot understands what they're like, how much control they have, right? So unless they publicly defame me, like they go out and publicly say something that's provably false about me, there's nothing that can actually like be done on my end, right? Like, so if if they just tell me like, hey, they just tell me in a private message, hey, you can't co-stream, and they don't justify it at all, they don't say anything, like I'm completely, I have no possible play there. I'm just like completely screwed. So I think that's been like my biggest challenge is, you know, like I feel like there is somebody within Riot that has it out for me. That's how I've always felt. Just like terrible. Realistically, like when I see how like the punishments I've got and I compare them to like other people, like I look at other creators, right? And I look at how they behave, how they act, and I compare myself and what I say to what they do. And I try to be as honest as possible with myself and like not be biased. But I honestly do not feel like I am one of the most toxic creators out there. Like, I don't think that that's even remotely close to being true. Like, I mean, I look at people like Tyler One, I watch his stream and I see like how he acts, for example. And then I compare it to like things that I've said. And I just don't see that like there's a world that I should be getting the punishments that I've gotten over my career. So I think that's definitely been the hardest part is like knowing at any point like other people have complete control of what I do. You know, it's just not a good feeling.
I mean, and you actually work with two companies like that in Twitch too. I mean, we've seen so much stuff come out of Twitch where they're banning people for stuff that other people are doing that goes completely unpunished. So that's crazy. Yeah, and I agree. I think that companies need some sort of oversight, but I don't know why they would ever give that to anybody.
Yeah, there's no point for them. I mean, I think they have a perfect system.
Yeah.
So it's
just gotta stay on their good side.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, luckily for me, I've never had any problems with Twitch. I've never had even like temporary like ban or anything. I've been streaming for like 9 years. Like the worst that happened was one time I had a banned streamer on my stream in a voice call, and I didn't know that was like not allowed. And I was like, oh hey, I did this by accident. Like, I just told them about it, and then they're like, oh, it's fine, just don't do it again. Like they've been completely fine with me.
Nice.
I mean, it's just like I understand that is kind of how like Twitch operates too, but it's just I think it's just experience based, right? Like if you're one of the streamers that gets banned all the time from Twitch and you feel like it's really unfair, you probably feel the same way that I do when I interact with Riot.
Yeah. Someone just doesn't like them.
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit about LCS, right? I know you're super involved with LEC, LPL. I watch those leagues, but I'm obviously more of an LCS fan. I really want us to do well at Worlds internationally. How did you feel about MSI? And, you know, I have my own take on it, and I've heard a lot of hot takes on it. But what do you think about how the NA showed up?
I mean, I feel like NA, every international tournament, has gotten to the point where it feels like because of all the failures, it's kind of like eaten away at the players. And in some way, like I believe that players are just like scared of failure, where somehow like NA is like the underdog when they play against teams worse than them, and they're the underdog when they play against teams better than them. So like I feel like the majority of the issues that I see personally are just like mental from North American teams. Like that's just how I feel. Like I feel like there's like more of a mental hurdle than like a physical like gameplay hurdle at this point, because I don't think that the players are like bad at all. Like I think all the players are actually really good. Like if I look at that team of like Fudge, Blabber, Perks, Sven, and Vulcan, I feel like that's one of the most talented teams that you could like send from the West to an international competition. So the fact that the results are like so terrible every time, and just like when you watch like the players play, like for me it just feels like there's definitely like the stress is just getting to the players. And that's like why the results are so poor. So I don't know. I mean, I just wish that NA teams would actually perform like as well as they could. And then like the result would be the result. You know, you see it for some reason, like it feels like European teams are way better at doing that. Like Mad Lions is like a team that's pretty like they're pretty much a rookie team. I mean, they have a couple 2-year players. And they have a 3-year player in Humanoid, but they're all like relatively really young players. When you compare that to like Sven and Perks that have been playing forever, like they're the players that we consider young, like Blabber, have been playing for longer than like anyone on Mad Lions.
That's true. I mean, I think I totally agree with you that LEC has this feel of like, it doesn't matter who we're gonna play, we're gonna just attack them and we're gonna punch them in the face. And I think Mad Lions embody that more than a lot of teams even in LEC. You know, they go against G2 and it's like they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that the issue that I see is that NA teams, it feels like they get into one of these situations and like they just like they think about like what they want the result to be. They're like, oh, we better not lose, or like we should win this, instead of just like, I mean, when you listen to like LPL teams comms like before the matches, they're playing against the best team in the world. They have a bunch of young players on their team. They have 3 players that's the first time international, and like the way that they view it, and like what it seems like their honest viewpoint is like, all we can do is play our best. So just like try your hardest, play your best, and then like whatever happens happens. Like if we're good enough, then we'll just win. Like they view like winning and losing as like a byproduct of how they play, rather than like something that like they need to hit every single time.
That's super deep. That goes back to a lot of sports psych concepts about like trust the process, right? That's what everyone always says, like trust the process. You don't look at the end result. You look at, are we improving day to day? Are we trying to, do our best every time we step on stage? I think that's something NA teams I think say, but clearly, it doesn't reflect necessarily in how they actually perform on that stage. Yeah, and I do think that C9 at MSI was the best possible team we could have sent, right? Like there's a lot of people who will be TL fans or TSM fans like, oh, we should have sent them, but like I don't see them doing any better than C9 did.
Yeah, I mean, and if they did, it wouldn't be on the merits of them being a better team.
Right. And honestly, like and I agree, because I think C9 went toe to toe with the best teams in the tournament and beat all of them. Right? They beat Mad Lions, they beat RNG, they beat Damwon. Like they could have done it, right? Like they definitely had games where it was very, very winnable against all those teams again too. But it's just really unfortunate, unlucky, some would say. But
yeah, I don't even think it's that unlucky, to be honest. Like I just feel like it. I feel like it is what it is. I feel like that's like the hardest thing that people probably are going through is like, I mean, it's. I feel like until I see like some, and like it doesn't have to be publicly. I just hope that the players like privately accept that like at least some of the players in C9 choked at MSI, like just played way worse than they should have.
Yeah,
I think that if that like happens and people have that like moment of reflection, like that's like the beginning of like, oh, now we can improve. Like
right.
But
yeah, and talking with them, I think they didn't come back beaten up. They were kind of like, we have to get better for Worlds. I think that's the mentality now. Everyone wants to just, they want to show that it was a fluke more than it was like, hey, we are a bad team. But and then, in that sense too, you're talking about veteran players trying to get new talent. And how do you feel about Sven getting swapped out for King?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have my own take. Like, I don't have any inside information. I know people assume that because I'm with Cloud9, I have like access to the team, and I'm sure that if I was like nosy enough, I could get that. But I purposely try to not know anything more than the average person.
Yeah.
So that my analysis can be like fair. And I honestly just feel like the only way that this could have happened is if there is like an attitude issue on Sven's part. I don't think that there's any like. When I watch MSI, I don't think there's anything gameplay related where it's like, oh yeah, like AD carry is a problem mechanically. I assume that it has to be based off like how he reacted to the MSI games going so poorly. Even in interviews like that I watched, if you read between the lines, like a lot of times he's like, yeah, like we have like an unwinnable draft here. And obviously if he thinks there's an unwinnable draft and the coaching staff doesn't think the draft is unwinnable, there's some type of like dissonance there that is created. So I don't know. I think that like, there are definitely times where like I agree with rookies being like put in. I just feel like at this point it wouldn't make sense because Sven is just such a good player.
Yeah, he definitely top one of the best ADCs in LEC for the last year and a half, 2 years. But I can also, I also trust C9's process in bringing in Fudge, bringing in Blobber, subbing those players in, and getting really good results with them. So I mean, we'll see. I think it's it's not really. It's maybe a sideways move at best, right?
I think at best it's a sideways move, but I think that most of the time, like, I would consider this to be like most likely a downgrade. In terms of just mechanical ability, it's more about like, is the team now more harmonious with Kenyan?
Yeah, and well, they have had significantly less time to prepare because they basically took the week off after MSI. They have 3 days of scrims, and then they're going straight into LCS season. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And then, in terms of the overall LCS, do you feel like the quality of teams is going up? Are we getting better across the board?
I So it's like weird. I think the top teams are getting better. Like I think that if you look at the rosters of TL and C9, they're significantly better than the last rosters. Like let's look at the first and second team.
Hmm.
You look at like FlyQuest and TSM from last year, and then you compare that to like the rosters of C9 and TL, and I think the rosters of C9 and TL are much better. But I think the worst team, the bad teams in the league are getting worse because I feel like investors have realized that it's like, oh well, we're not going to make money off this, and if our team's not winning, we might as well just go as budget as possible. So I think teams like Golden Guardians got significantly worse. I think teams like Immortals like just don't have like great rosters on paper. Yeah, I think that like the overall level is probably the same, but the better teams are better and the worst teams are worse.
Yeah. You know who I'm excited for this split is 100 Thieves. Picking up
Yep.
Abidage and they have a strong team, but I think that might be the piece.
Yeah, definitely. I think Abadage is actually really good.
Yeah. And then, in terms of clear-cut ways that you see LCS teams not doing what you'd expect, right? I think I've watched a lot of streams where you're just like, oh, why did they do this? Why did they make the decision? What do you think are some ways that they can fix a lot of those, I guess, macro mistakes? We always talk about LPL macro being so superior. Like, what is that?
So I think that LPL, like the thing that makes LPL so unique is that they're just so willing to like try shit. They'll just try things just in order to figure out if they work or not. And then regardless of like the result, they'll just try to learn from what happens. And I feel like NA is too scared a lot of times to like flip objectives and like do barons that might be like risky at times to like try to make the most out of the situation. So that's like the thing that I like the most out of LPL teams. Like their mentality is not that like, oh, we can like hit this perfect level of League of Legends. It's like we just need to play the best we can, and then like we'll just do things that feel like they make sense to us, and then after like the result happens, we'll try to learn as much as we can from that. We'll try to like reverse engineer what actually occurred in the game.
Yeah.
So I think that that's like a really healthy mindset.
Yeah, I agree because it keeps the game fresh and it also makes it unpredictable for your opponents. One of the things that I see come up a lot on Twitter, right? A lot of the Twitter analysts and all that stuff is the draft diff, and I think LPL teams are probably the biggest at overcoming the supposed draft diff. Like every time I see someone's like, "Oh, this is unwinnable," the LPL team tends to win that.
Yep. I mean, like the thing is, they understand how much champion proficiency matters, and they view it as like a bigger factor than North American teams do. So like North American teams like kind of assume that everyone's going to play, which is weird, right? Because LPL players are just better in general, like mechanically, than NA players. But for some reason, like LPL players think that there's like more skill disparity amongst them, and that like if they're good enough at something, it doesn't matter who their opponent is, like they can outplay.
Yeah.
Like they have this mentality towards like outplaying and how valuable like being good on a champion really is. And when you compare that to like North American teams, it feels like North American teams are like, oh well, I just can't play this matchup. And it's like, well, why can't you play it? It's like, oh well, if the other guy plays it perfectly, then there's nothing I can do. Well, no one ever plays perfectly, so like that argument immediately like falls flat on its face to me.
Yeah,
so
that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, in talking with challenger players, like, well, the best way to climb is to pick champions you're comfortable on, regardless of the matchup. Like, if you're a one trick, I mean, you can get pretty high up there, regardless if it's a bad matchup, good matchup, doesn't really matter, because you know all those, I guess, the small micro interactions that end up changing lane states and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can hit, like we've had one tricks at challenger, right? So you can hit rank 1 even as a one trick. So the idea of like one tricking is not that your champion is good all the time into every matchup. It's that your mastery of the champion will overcome any bad matchups. And like the truth of the matter is that like a lot of the matchups that are considered hard are not actually that hard if you if you have like a knowledge advantage. I mean, we saw how many times that did Gala at MSI pick Kaisa into unplayable matchups, Jinx Thresh, and he's playing like Kaisa Leona or something like that, or Kaisa Nautilus, and then they just win the matchup because he's the best Kaisa player in the world. Like, I feel like that is something that is so like lost. I mean, you could even tell from like from the interviews afterwards, right? Like, NA loses, like C9 loses to Pentanet, right? A team that's significantly worse. And the first thing that they say is like, oh, our draft was really bad. Like, we didn't think that like they could play Senna Tom Kench. So then we played like this Leona, like, I forget what it was. It was like Leona Kaisa into Tom Kench and Tom Kench and Senna.
Yeah.
So they thought that this matchup was like unplayable. But like in reality, they were winning the matchup by like 30 CS. And it's like, figuring out how you actually carry that over into win is like the whole thing about being a pro player. It's like, and being like a better team.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw RNG have worse drafts than that into Dom 1 and still win. So
Yeah.
to me, I think that the issue is that like a lot of NA players have this mentality of like what's winnable, what's unwinnable. And like, I think that it started as people just saying these words, and you know, everyone was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, this is winnable, this is unwinnable. But like, I feel like the nuance of it is lost, where it's not like, it's not actually unwinnable. It's not like impossible to win. It's just harder than it could be. And like, harder does not mean that it's impossible. And if you're like good enough, like you should have enough of a mentality to be like, yeah, I mean, we're just better, so we're gonna win anyway. Like, it doesn't matter what we draft. Like, we could draft the worst champions in the world. We're so much better that we're just gonna find a way to win.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you know, like when they look at solo queue and all this stuff, right? Like, it doesn't make sense that you can't win any game. So it sounds like the biggest issue you're seeing is confidence, right? It seems like LCS doesn't have the confidence that they should win all these games, win all these matchups. It's more like, oh, we have a draft advantage here, we should win this one, rather than we can win any game if we just play well.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So talking about other stuff than LCS now, what are some of the games that you enjoy playing or watching other than League?
So I started watching Valorant a little bit for yeah, I mean, so I try to watch like big esport tournaments. I just love esports in general. I just think it's like
Same.
really fun watching people that have mastered a game.
Same.
So like I watch Smash from time to time whenever I can like find it. I don't really follow. I watch the international religiously every year that there's the international. I'm just like super big on it. I watch as much of it as I can. Even though I don't even play Dota, like I just love the tournament. I think it's the best tournament in all of esports. Highest prize pool, but then also I think really insane format. It really gets the best team to win most of the time. Like almost every time the best team will win that format because of like the double elimination and like how many different rounds there are. And like, yeah, I don't know. I just love the tournament. And then right now I've actually gotten pretty heavily into TFT. That's been my main game I've been grinding actually.
Nice.
Since I've been taking this break for 2 weeks. So I've been grinding TFT literally all day.
What rank are you now?
I'm master 150 LP.
Man, all right. Challenger soon.
Yeah, I played like 300. I played something like 280 games in like 2 weeks. So think about how much. Yeah, it's like I'm like playing like roughly like 20 games a day. I mean, it's like one of those things where whenever I want to like grind a game like this, like I just want to obsess over it. So
yeah. And TFT is one of those games where you can, because you can learn about it. Like I think that's what gets me into League too, is you can read all the stuff, you can figure out like what the best combos are, and the nice thing about TFT is there's zero mechanics, right? So you can just kind of play it.
Yeah.
It's all mental. And then I think Valorant's been really fun. You watched all of the Iceland Masters.
I watched some of like Shroud's watch party or whatever.
Okay.
I didn't watch like enough. Like I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some. I watched like I would say maybe like a third of the games.
Yeah. So some good matches though. I really like how Valorant feels like, I mean, obviously it's new, but there's a lot of parity between all the regions right now in the world. Like anyone can beat anyone, and that's a lot of fun to watch. Also, it helps that NA's on top right now, but
yeah. Yeah, no, that's super cool. I mean, I think that's like I don't know, man. It's like I think that the problem with NA being like this bad is pretty unique to League. Like if you look at other esports, NA in CS:GO is not better than EU, but like they were able to win a major in CS:GO, and like they're way more competitive. They've been to like finals and majors, and it doesn't feel like as unwinnable as for some reason. Like there's something about League of Legends where I feel like because of like how the game started and how bad NA was in comparison to Korea, it's like it's really like compounded and like weighed down people. Like it feels like it's just completely different than what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think even new players, like rookies coming in, are under the impression that we can't win internationally, and that's a really hard mindset to overcome if it's kind of ingrained into who you are as a player and ingrained into your org, ingrained into your teams. Like that's really, really tough to overcome. Someone in my chat said, who do you like co-streaming with? Who's your favorite co-streamer to play with or duo with?
Co-stream with? Who do I like co-stream with? I mean, I pretty much like enjoy all my guests. I mean, Niski, Cadril, Grabs, like any combination of them, all of them.
I love
Niski.
Niski.
It's always a good time.
Niski's hilarious. I miss that guy.
Niski Niski's really good. Niski's really good. I mean, pretty much like all the people that I coach him with are like my legitimate friends. You know, like I'll like talk to them offline and stuff. So I mean, I normally like have yeah, just a good time coaching with everyone. Like Nelson, like pretty much anyone who I have on my coach streams, Upset for Bivin. They're just people that like they're like almost like interchangeable in ways. So, like where I feel like I could grab any of those players and just put them together and or like those streamers and put them together, commentators, whatever they are. Put them together and like we'll just have a good time watching the game. So yeah, I mean I think that it's pretty open.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean those LEC guys are always. I feel like they just have a funny take on like when they watch stuff. Like the commentary is great. And then this is something I've been asking everyone I bring on. You know, who do you think is the best player in the world right now?
For League of Legends?
Yeah.
Best player in the world? Ooh, it's tough. I think like I mean most people will probably say Chovy. Personally, from like watching games, the player that has the biggest impression on me when I watch him is Nuggery. I think Nuggery is just so insane.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I mean, it's. I really wanted to see him at MSI. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I think a lot of players I've talked to have said Showmaker is one of the worst people to play against. So they're always super impressed whenever they boot camp or go to Korea and all that, and it's like he just does stuff that most mid laners just haven't seen, which is kind of nuts. But yeah, cool. And then what are some goals that you have in the future? I mean, you have so much stuff going on. Like, I mean, what are aspirations that you might still have?
Well, I think like I don't know. I'm pretty open to a lot of things in the future. I mean, I definitely want to like become like the biggest co-streamer, which is where I was actually when I got banned, and like I mean, it just is what it is, right? Like that's something that was really cool. I mean, the fact that when I started streaming LCS, I would just get like 25,000 viewers for like a few weeks was just insane, right? So I want to become like the biggest co-streamer. But then I think down the line, I would definitely be really interested in coaching League of Legends professionally. Like it's something that I definitely want to do at a point. I just want to make sure I'm not sacrificing too much. So it's really just like being able to measure it. But I also think that I can improve my knowledge and like become a better coach by talking to other coaches and having in-depth conversations, which is something that I already do, as well as just watching a ton of pro leagues. So
sure.
I don't think that it's something where I need to be necessarily within the like bounds of coaching a team to improve at like the mental aspects of what it would take to become a coach. Like, so like reading books and things like that. I mean, I want to be somebody who eventually will be able to like change, like have really big effect on a team. Like not one of these coaches where it's like, oh, how much can we like tell? Is he actually doing something? And it's like a debate. I don't want that at all. I want it to be like legitimate, like, oh, I'm like able to completely elevate a team, which is something that I feel like a lot of coaches aspire to, right? Like it's something it's not easy at all. But it's something that I think would be like really cool if I was able to actually one day help North America reach heights that they've never helped before. They've never reached before.
If you were offered your first coaching job on the last place team in LCS, would you take it?
Depending on the players. Yeah. But yeah, probably not. Probably not.
I mean, that's tough, right? That would be the ultimate like elevating a team to prominence, but that also feels nearly impossible, like to take the last place team and turn them into a first place team.
I mean, it also like I have to be reasonable about what my career, my career as a streamer brings me. I mean, last place teams seem like they don't want to pay anything for coaches.
That's true. That's true. Unless they get some massive new investor that's like, I want you to transform everything here. But I mean, that'd be tough anyway, though, because even for pro players, there's a lot of incentive to like just stream instead. Like the money's better sometimes. A lot of times, you can have a more consistent audience. You can have a more consistent job a lot of times too, because in esports, especially LCS, league in general is just so cutthroat. Like these guys play half a season and they get cut, or they get dropped from academy and they have nothing else going on. It's really difficult. I actually always sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, and you can still help from the outside. Like you don't have to be a literal coach to have influence on LCS. Like there's been multiple like junglers that like will approach me and just ask me about specific champions that maybe I play in solo queue that they haven't played in competitive, and like asking about the viability of it. If I was to play in competitive, like what would I do? Like so I mean I feel like I could still help LCS elevate their level without necessarily being a part of it. Obviously not to the same degree, not saying I have like massive influence, but like just being able to like help a little bit, I think is nice, you know, talking to players, even like a lot of times when players like are dealing with like tough situations within their team environment, they'll ask me questions about like how they would do it, or like if they're in a situation where they feel like their spot is not guaranteed and like they're having to like drop to academy, come back into LCS. Like there's been multiple players that will like reach out and just be like, hey man, like what would you do in this situation? Like how do I like what would your take be from the outside? Because I feel like a lot of times you lose perspective when you're in a team. So like I was something that I did as a player, just reach out to people that are involved, that watch, and get their takes on it without like having any biases. Besides for maybe like the bias of like them liking you, being your friend. So I think that that's like something that I think is like pretty useful.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just that kind of stuff too, and content and all that, you know, like putting up your reviews, VOD reviews, that kind of stuff, the co-streaming with your analysis. I mean, that indirectly also helps the player base, because if you have, let's say, a couple Diamond 1 players who are watching this, like they pick up a few things like, oh, macro or whatever. By the time they get into Challenger, hopefully they get into pro teams, then they're bringing some of that knowledge with them too. So I think it's all feeding downward, right? Like we just need more coming down from the pro level, like coaches putting more content out, trying to educate people. And then having the player base in NA, the solo queue player base, actually try to win, which is something that I'm in silver, and I see this all the time where people literally are trolling and they don't even care about winning. They're like, oh, whatever, man. I lost my lane at level 2. I don't care. Like, why not just play the game? Like, play it out. But
yeah, I mean, playing the game is like kind of OP. Like I always tell people like, you know, like solo queue is so imperfect, and it's like, everyone thinks their teammate sucks, right? But like the thing they also have to realize is like the enemy team sucks just as bad, if not worse. Like assuming that you're on the team, the enemy team sucks really bad. So like even if they don't suck early game, the players that are generally good early game that are stuck in solo queue, it means that they have deficiencies elsewhere.
Right.
It means that they like are not, sometimes prone to throwing, or they don't know how to take barons well, they don't know how to control vision and like push their leads. So I mean, I feel like just sitting there and playing out your games will just get you such good results. I mean, normally like whenever I grind Challenger, that's one of the things that I always like have to always like remind myself. It's mainly a mental test. It's not really a physical test.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
that's
playing
huge.
and wanting to win will win you games.
I feel like you just hyped me up. I'm gonna play a solo queue game after this, but I'm gonna try to win one. I had a really bad one this morning, and I had to take a break.
Yeah. I mean, I like just climbing ladders, like in general. I mean, that's like, even if I get bored of League, I mean, that's the reason why I'm playing TFT, and like I'm trying to hit Challenger in TFT, and like I understand that like I'm way worse at TFT than I am at League, obviously, right? Yeah. But the fact that my mental, and like I have no ego when I play TFT, my mental is like so good, and I'm just always trying my hardest to win, just will let me climb so much smoother than having any other like type of mentality. So it's something that I always like doing in off time. It's like picking up a new game and trying to get as good as I possibly can at it, and just go through like the hurdles of learning, and then trying to figure out like what I'm doing wrong and improving on it. I feel like it's one of the best feelings possible.
For sure. Yeah, and I think something I've seen in a lot of pro players too is that they basically they're good at a lot of games. I think that's kind of interesting. You know, like I think a lot of pros have hit very, very high levels in multiple games that are completely different than the game they play. I think someday they'll find some sort of gene, or, you know, they'll find some sort of commonality trait that, you know, establishes like, oh, you could have a chance to go pro. But yeah, that's just a common trait I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also it's just like so much of it is mental, right? Like when you're playing like any other game, and you understand like the idea of like, oh, well, I don't actually have to be like whatever your perception of like, oh, I have to be so good to be a challenger player in a different game, or like be in the highest level in a different game. It's not really like about that. It's mainly just about like learning and trying to like improve. And then if you improve enough, you just get challenger by default, or you get the highest rank by default. Not like you don't end up having to like do something crazy to get there. It's just about like, yeah, I just have to try to improve as much as I can while I'm playing. So I mean, I think it's one of the things that I just like try to keep in my mind when I play other games, and I grind it, where it's like the main thing that I just need to focus on is like what I am doing in the current game, like, and try to figure out what mistakes I'm making, what I'm doing well, and then how I can like how I can actually combine this to actually, you know, have a really, really, really positive experience and actually get to the highest level. It's not really about like some other factors. It's mainly just about your own improvement and like focusing on what you do. And it's something that I do actually better when I play other games.
Yeah, because there's less. I guess there's less self pressure to be challenger, right, or the highest tier. Because in league,
Yeah.
you expect to be that good, and it's like, oh, it's really frustrating if you don't play up to your own expectation. But another,
Yeah, I would say it's less of that. I would say for me, it's more of the fact that like I normally like I don't enjoy really playing League that much. In like a solo queue environment, like with random people all the time. Like everyone plays differently. A lot of people are super delusional. It's like a team game with no comms. Most other team games have some level of communication with your teammates, so it's not as like annoying, I guess, at least for me personally. I think it's more just of the fact that because I have more to learn in other games, I'm more like hungry to like hit certain like ranks. And like obviously I understand that the ranks are kind of meaningless. All that matters is the improvement. But for me, like the validation that I get when I make small like goals and I make progress is different than when I make progress in League. Like I don't feel anything when I hit Challenger at this point. Like if I hit Challenge, like for example, last season, I ended up playing in Challenger for like 3.5 months. And when I hit it, it's like, it's always, this is how I always describe it. It's more relieving than it is fulfilling. Like I never feel good when I hit Challenger, you know, because the thing is like, also like the way that Challenger is in League of Legends, if for some reason, like people will just flame you if you're not Challenger, but then when you hit Challenger, they'll just discredit whatever way you got to Challenger. So if you play meta champions or if you just play your role, then your role is OP. Like there's always just a reason why your Challenger doesn't matter. But like in other games, like no one says anything, right? Like all the other games I play and I'm completely like no one really knows who I am in TFT. And like when I play games, like even like the community is like the people that are in my games are like, oh, what's up, dude? Like they're just much more like nice about it. So I feel like the thing is I get more validation from climbing in other games, which makes it like more motivating to continue playing.
That's really unfortunate. Man, that's deep because I mean I think if you don't have a motivation to get to the top level and there's no reward for getting there, intrinsic or otherwise, like why is anyone going to improve? You know, why do they care at all? Like to post a picture. But all right, so we're running up on the hour right now. If you guys have any questions for Dom, go ahead and post them up. But yeah, thank you so much for making time to do this. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me today. Like I said, huge fan. Really look forward to the stuff you have coming out.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Sounds like no questions. So yeah, I'll let you go. But yeah, thanks again. I will hopefully see you soon. And let me know if you ever need anything. If you ever need any tips, health advice or whatever, I got you.
Thanks. All right. Appreciate it.
Cool. Take care.
Bye.